You're listening to the Build, Buy, Sell Agency Podcast, and this episode is part of our Agency Leader Series. My name is Shane Perkins, and I'm best known for leading acquisitions, deal making, and financing for Unite Digital, a unique and growing agency network specifically positioned to serve mid-market clients across the U.S. And I'm talking to mid-size agency owners across the marketing and advertising spectrum to uncover their top mind shifts, lessons learned, and insights that help them grow and manage their agency, as well as give you a chance to learn what partner and deal opportunities they are looking for right now that you can reach out about to explore possibilities to work together. Let's get into today's episode. Welcome to the Build, Buy, Sell Agency Podcast. I'm your host, Shane Perkins, and today my guest is Bill Gadless, president and co-founder at Emagine, a 50-person plus web design and digital marketing agency serving over 2,000 clients with offices in Fall River, Massachusetts, and Boca Raton, Florida. Great to have you on, Bill.
Thanks for having me, Shane.
Absolutely. Bill, I gotta ask this first question. I mean, 2,000 clients, what the heck's going on there? How do you even make that possible?
Well, that's I wouldn't say we're actively servicing 2,000 clients, but we've been at this for a long time, practically since the beginning of the web. So we're old in the business. My co-founder and I started this right around the mid 90s as the web was really just being born. And over that period of time, we've worked with over 2,000 companies. So we're not actively supporting 2,000 clients at the moment with things like SEO and support and maintenance. But I think the number is well over 1,000 in terms of clients that are actively doing something or other with us, even if that's just basic web support.
How do you break that out in terms of the types of clients, typical deal size you have them on, or how does that work?
Well, that's been an evolving thing. I think one of the challenges when you've been at this for so long is, you start out, most people, I think anyway, I guess I don't know what most people do, but I'm assuming a lot of people start like I did and like we did, in that you kind of get into it doing anything for anyone, just to pay the rent. And that's certainly who we are. My partner and I were both college dropouts, had no real formal training, just a couple of self-employed entrepreneurial marketing people. And like I said, you start out doing anything for anyone who will pay you. And gradually over time, you start to hone what you're good at and you start to develop focus. I think maybe that's one of the things that I'd like to talk about here today. Actually, I know a lot of people who don't necessarily narrow their focus, and I think it's a big mistake in many cases. But for us, over time, we went from those guys that would do anything to an agency that today is actually very specific in terms of the types of clients we'll take on and the types of clients we target. So, but what's happened is, because we've been at this for so long, we still retain and maintain a lot of clients that we picked up along the way. We don't want to just get rid of people who've been really loyal to us and who we can continue to support in some capacity, just because they don't necessarily fit the profile of who we're targeting today. But there's attrition that just comes with that organically. So we've lost a lot of clients over the years who maybe loved us and we loved them, but because we changed, we grew, we maybe outgrew them in certain cases. Maybe as we became bigger, the cost to work with us obviously increases with more overhead, with more people. Your services become more sophisticated. And so a lot of the people that we worked with in the early days, we've outgrown, unfortunately. And it's always sad when that happens, because we do develop really close relationships with our clients. And then, there's just a bit of assumed attrition that happens with growth.
So in terms of the clients you were working with, I mean, is it like a typical small agency, sub $10,000 plus $10,000 website projects and a few grand a month for marketing services? And now have you upgraded to a higher tier in that? How would you break that out?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. And if I look back at the history, it's almost identical to what you just said. I mean, we first, Brett Cohen, my co-founder, he did his first website in 1995 for, I think, $500. It was somebody that he had been doing other marketing services for, and nobody had websites. And it was the first person that ever asked him, hey, can you do a website? And he said, no, but I will. I'll figure it out, just like most people do, right? And he did when he charged him $500. He called me up. This was before we were in business together. We were friends. We had done some business together as vendor client, and so I went out there and tested the market first. And before I learned how to do a website or exactly what a website was, I went out. I'm a salesman, so I went out there to see what I could get for one and how to talk about it, and just kind of gain some experience there. And so the first one I sold was $2,000. And so that's when Brett called me and said, hey, we should get together. You can sell this stuff for a little more money and I can do them. And so we got together there. And so it was a couple of years of just kind of doing a website for $1,000, $2,000. Oh, we got one for $5,000. Eventually, this is an interesting part of the story. There was a big conference that used to happen, put on by CNET every year down in New Orleans back in those early days. It was called builder.com, and it was huge. And it was, this was back when it was Brett, me, and maybe we had one designer in house. And these were much bigger agencies. And we went there, and one of the talks that we were listening to really just blatantly told us, you're not charging enough for what you're doing. Because we were hearing what people were getting to do stuff that wasn't even nearly as good as the work we were doing. And we realized we were really undervaluing our services. Like I said, we were new to it. We were just kind of getting whatever anyone would pay us to do it. And we came back from that conference. It was a really important turning point for us because we really sat down and figured out, what is this stuff worth? What does it take us to do? What should we be paid to do it? And that was like, I remember we got back from that and we delivered a $15,000 proposal. And that was huge for us. And we got the deal. No questions asked. You got it. And we were kind of like, wow, if we didn't go to that conference, we would have gotten $3,000 for that same exact website that we did. So that's evolved over time. We spent a good 10 years plus working for a lot of being from the Boston region. There's a ton of tech in the region. So we spent a good 10 years working in the high-tech startup sector. And did tons of those throughout the Boston region before we went national. And our average project at that time was we did a lot of websites. We probably did about 500 websites for high-tech startups over that period of time. And it was about $25,000. And then we were selling SEO, paid search services that would range anywhere from on the low end of like $500 a month up to a couple of $1,000s a month. And that would be a typical client for us for that period of time. These days, most of our projects are 75K plus, sometimes as low as 50,000, many in the multi-hundreds of thousands of dollars. But I would say on average, usually 75,000 and up. And then as far as supporting marketing that we're doing from SEO and paid search, as you can imagine, just a big range there as well, depending on what the client's budget and ad spend and all that stuff is. And from an SEO standpoint, what they have in terms of content development resources, and that's just an enormous range, as you know.
So you've grown from just a few people over these years into 50 plus people focused on very specific sectors, and which is really your what I understand is your belief is to go niche, go focus, go specific. Tell me more about that mind shift and where you guys are at now with that.
Certainly, and again, just as you just said, I really think it's been the biggest, if one of the biggest, if not the biggest reasons for our growth and success over the years. So again, early days, anything for anyone. We did gradually become more focused than a lot of folks, I think, sooner than later. And again, it wasn't because we were experts in any particular sectors. Like I said, Brett and I don't really have a lot of corporate experience in any industry. Mm-hmm. We were just entrepreneurial guys that would figure out any business in any industry and figure out how to market them. So, but because of where we were, again, from the Boston region, just a whole bunch of tech and biotech in that area. And so it just kind of happened for that reason why we started working in tech. So B2B in general really became our focus and our specialty for so many years. So B2B encompassed a ton of tech, like I said, manufacturing, professional services, construction, and then even certain aspects of healthcare that are B2B. So for many years, we were really a B2B agency. And what happened, just again, kind of by accident, because being in the Boston region, in addition to a lot of tech, there's a lot of biotechnology companies, a lot of early stage pharmaceutical, medical device. And so we got a few clients in that industry, and it very quickly became our favorite industry for a number of reasons. One is back in 2008, 2009, when everything turned down with the financial crisis, it was anything healthcare related that we could do that really got us through that time without a heck of a lot of layoffs. Like most, it was a difficult time, but because we were so focused in healthcare around that time, or at least headed in that direction, it really helped us get through a tough time. So that was a big part of it. The other reason why we've always liked healthcare is it just makes the work we do a lot more meaningful than we always felt we were doing for other industries. I mean, we're delivering messages for companies who are saving people's lives and who are developing amazing products that will impact people's families and extend their lives and make them healthier and happier. And there's no other industry that really does that. So those are the reasons we like the industry. And so we grabbed onto it very early on when we started working with them. And so it's been, for us, it's been from being someone who do anything to a handful of industries for 10 plus years to now really honing in and almost exclusively focused on just anything healthcare. And even that sounds like we're pretty focused, but to me, I actually feel like we're still not focused because healthcare is this big. So now even within healthcare, we're starting to do this.
So you're finding out really what you guys are doing well at and emphasizing that a lot more and getting more clients. Basically, are you taking those success stories and then finding the niches in healthcare to say, look, these are similar success stories, we could apply this to you too?
Yeah, exactly. And what I found is in this particular space, healthcare, it's being served mostly by a lot of traditional agencies who started as PR firms or print or investor relations firms, but a lot of agencies that aren't necessarily as strong as we are at digital. And because we're digital first, it's turning out to be a real strength for us in the healthcare sectors. And that might not be the case for a lot of other sectors, but within healthcare, again, it's served by a lot of ad agencies, PR firms that aren't as strong in digital. So for us, we're coming in and we're really doing incredible things with urgent projects and rush projects that other agencies have failed at, or other agencies had to say no to because they just didn't have the digital acumen that we have, or the in-house resources, and they outsource all their digital. So exactly what you said, we've got some case studies that are just really amazing in terms of the things we're pulling off for some of these clients, and obviously leveraging that work to get more clients within those same sectors obviously is always helpful.
To the agency owners that is listening, what is the transformation you've seen, maybe personally for you and then for your team, and then financially would be nice to hear too, the transformation from being generalist to specific? Because I'm sure I see a lot of full service agencies serving all clients. I think they do it on purpose though. But I'm just curious, from your perspective, because since you're on the focus side, what can you share there?
In terms of staffing, it hasn't really affected us too much because even though we're very specialized in terms of the industries we focus on, I can't sit here and claim that we've got like a whole bunch of healthcare experts sitting in Imagine's chairs. We're really a company of digital experts that just has a whole bunch of healthcare experience. So we continue to learn on the fly in terms of the industry. In terms of financially, we continue to maintain a pretty level rate of growth. I think most of us in the agency business have seen a lot of ups and downs, especially like over the past, even though the economy has been strong for going on 10 years at this point, the agency business has seen a lot of strange ups and downs, and we've seen this with a lot of other agency owners that we've seen. So even though some years we might have better years of growth, like for instance, we're sitting here right now enjoying our best year ever, not just in terms of total revenues, but in terms of growth over last year. But next year's an election year. Next year we could see a 20% decline. It's it's a strange business in that way. It's affected by a number of things, but leveled out as we look at average over a number of years, we see pretty incremental, steady rate of growth. Our focus on healthcare hasn't really changed that a lot, just because we have always been. This is just kind of one of our strengths, regardless of the industries we're focused on. We're just a really sales intensive organization. I would say more so than other agencies that I kind of know personally. Our very first employee was actually a lead generator, someone who was just hitting the phone. So before we hired a designer, a developer, a search engine optimizer, it was somebody to hit the phones and get us the next client, because we always knew that we had that rent to pay. Even if we had 2 or 3 projects right now, we've always been of the mindset that we've got to be selling, we've got to be networking, we've got to be pounding the pavement and cold calling. So we've always been a very sales intensive organization, always lead generating, always selling. And so that has, that's helped us maintain a pretty steady rate of growth over the years, even though, like I said, we've seen our dips and we've seen our large increases in some years.
Is there something about niching down that a agency owner that is a generalist should open up their mind to, in the way that, well, let's say you're both 50 employees, but for what I would imagine is that it makes it a lot easier internally because you have repeatable systems and processes, and in terms of industries, you have repeatable results. At least that's what I've found in an agency, small digital agency that I've ran. What I'm curious is there some good takeaways that you say, look, if you really listened up, you probably get some benefit out of this?
And you're absolutely right. Because we work with a lot of companies that are similar to each other in many ways, we've developed a lot of efficiencies in terms of repeatable processes. A lot of times, like a good example would be when you get into some bigger companies, this isn't necessarily true, but for instance, one of the sectors we do a lot of work in is early stage biotechnology companies, early stage medical device companies. Mostly what they need brochure websites. They're launching a product that might not be on the market for 10 plus years. So knowing the things that they need, we're able to develop a lot of efficiencies and deliver. And even though we're doing all custom branding and all custom content and everything else, ultimately the product they need is very similar to what others need. So definitely a lot of efficiencies. But what I will say, again, being a salesman, being such a sales driven organization, where niching down and being focused has helped by far more than anything else is in terms of being able to win that business within those sectors, competitors who are less focused, be able to speak the language of that sector better than anyone else that you're competing with. Just to give you real numbers, in the past 6 months or so, of about 11 prospective clients that we've pitched, who met certain requirements. And so there are very strict requirements before we'll even invest in doing a real comprehensive pitch. Do they have budget? Are they fine with the particular technologies and platforms? For instance, we work on WordPress. Are any roadblocks like that? Is there an incumbent agency that we're competing with? There's a lot of things that we go in to truly qualify somebody. Of everybody who meets our qualifying criteria, I think we're like 9 out of 11 in terms of pitches over the past 6 to 7 months that we've done. And I think we're good salespeople. We're good pitchers. We have a great team that presents well, but we're so focused. We're going in. We understand their industry. We're making actionable recommendations that are very specific and targeted to them and what they do, because we understand it so well. So that, to me, has been the biggest advantage as we continue to sell and grow. We're just outselling those who don't know nearly about the industry, nearly as much about the industry as we do.
What are some of the insights that you've gained in terms of sales and focusing on niches that these guys wouldn't know, even if they are a mid-sized agency?
I think the biggest thing that I find, and I've talked about this a lot so I've spoken at quite a few WordCamps, which is the conference for WordPress professionals around the country, and I speak a lot about sales and marketing because that's ultimately who I am. And I think the biggest thing that I find so many agencies, especially in the early days, especially on the smaller side, don't do, is determine what a unique differentiator, a unique selling proposition is going to be for them. Everybody talks about how good they are at what they do and that they're really strong at this particular thing. maybe even us, maybe even one of our biggest strengths, which is that we're so industry focused, is even a relatively lame differentiator in a way. Okay, you've done a lot of work in this particular industry, so what? So I think, and I continue to hone ours. I mean, I have some. I'll speak to what they are, and they actually change quite a bit because, for instance, right now we're finding that because we're coming through with a lot of rush projects, a lot of urgent projects that a lot of agencies can't handle, specifically within healthcare, that as we speak is becoming more of a unique selling proposition for us because we're hearing how many others can't do it. So you learn what these things are, and it's not always just going to be one thing. A lot of marketing books. I was always a student of marketing. I read every book that was available to me in my early days. Said you need one unique selling proposition. I actually don't think so. I think that you can have a handful of differentiators that you leverage for the right scenario. But I think the biggest weakness that I see out there and among the people that I talk to is they have none. They say, we have a great team. We have all this work to show you. We have these results to show you. That's all great. You need those things. It's not that those things don't matter, but they're not unique. You're going to be competing against agencies that all have those things. They all have a great team. They all have clients. They all have results. How are you going to stand out and differentiate yourself among them? So that's where becoming niche, industry, whether it's industry focused, so it's not always industry focused. That has been what we've done, and that's where I've seen the most success. But it could be just type of project focused. It could be, it could be company size focused. So it's not always going to be by industry, but finding something that you can do better than others can do, and being able to talk about it in a unique way is something that I think all agencies need to invest more time.
Or even a very specific problem that's common across even just many industries. So one thing my team and I are looking at are really the data retainment problem out there. Data creation, retention, and then utilization. It's like there's just so much data out there, but there's not enough systems or insights there to make use of it as much as we can, from the marketing that we use. So you could focus on a data story, which I see a lot of agencies say, we focus on data and digital. Honestly, that's all that I mean, that's if we're looking at like a layers, and there's like 5 layers, they're only hitting the first layer, but there's so many ways to go niche down into that data. So I'm pretty sure you guys do the same thing with healthcare.
There's a lot of your point is valid in that, there's always going to be some niche challenges that you can overcome. And so for us, again, because our specialization is by industry, we start to learn of a lot of the nuances of that industry and areas that we could come in and capitalize on, just without going too far down this and being too nuanced. I mean, an example of this is we work with a lot of life sciences companies, like I said, biotechnology, pharmaceutical companies, before they actually have a product. So a big part of one of those companies becoming commercialized and having products approved by the FDA is going through clinical trials. So during that period, there's a whole opportunity for digital for these types of companies while they're going through their clinical trials. They need patients. They need people who will try their drug out. We've learned big digital opportunities to help companies build clinical trial websites, find participants, things like that. So per industry, you'll find that's the other advantage of focusing. You'll find all sorts of nuances and areas that you can kind of come in and help your clients in ways that you would have no idea of unless you worked in that industry a lot.
What are some of the sales things you guys do? Getting down into tactical, what are you doing on the day-to-day that's generating these consistent client pitches?
So what's funny is how I started when I had no clue what I was doing, but just out of need. I drove around an industrial park. I remember I was young and I was literally with my mom and had her writing down all the names of these companies in the industrial park, right? I didn't have money to buy a mailing list. I didn't know about databases or anything. So writing down all these companies, I went home. I wrote them a letter because that's what I was before I got into the web. I was a writer. I was a direct mail guy. So I wrote these people a letter. I sent it out to them. Of about 100 companies, I think 2 or 3 actually called me back. And that was great. I got a couple of meetings. I actually closed all 3 of those. But then it dawned on me that there were 97 others that never called me back, and I can't just leave them alone. And so I called them, and then I emailed them. and I got like 10 more meetings. And so the reason that this is relevant is, although I would like to get a little bit more back into direct mail. I can't say that we're doing any these days, but very similar process. Today, as we speak, we've got somebody finding all of our target companies every day, all day, finding the appropriate contacts at those companies all day, every day, adding those people on social media, following them, engaging them when we can, but also have other people who are literally calling them, emailing them, engaging them on social, liking the things that they're posting that are relevant and exciting to their companies. So we spend a lot of time engaging people in ways that, quite frankly, a lot of our competitors just don't want to do. Nobody wants to pick up the phone.
Well, this is hardcore outbound sales
Yes,
stuff
exactly.
for the digital age.
It really is. And yeah, we do inbound marketing as well. And I mean, obviously, we have an SEO department. We blog. We have videos. We have content. But because we started so aggressively on the outbound side, it's always stuck. And that's why we have so much activity. We get our inbound leads. Those are nice. Those are beautiful, especially when they're good ones, because you didn't have to do a lot of work. They found you. But because we've always been so strong on the outbound side, because we're so aggressive, that is what has continued to create a continuous flow of leads, far beyond most of the other people that I tend to know and meet in the agency business. So it's really a mix.
I don't want to give away your specific pitch, right, for healthcare, but let's just say they're in other industries. I mean, I'm assuming it's like a CMO you guys try to reach out to. What are the hooks that get them to be interested in engaging back with you?
I wish, and it's not that I'm reluctant to reveal it, I wish I had a magic answer to that. It's constant testing. So just like anything in sales and marketing, literally every day we're testing things. So we do different email marketing campaigns. We try different scripts in terms of when we do call people, different emails. And, I think like most of us know, and you'd probably agree, Shane, I think, nothing really is a great substitute for content. So while there might be certain headlines and certain scripts that might work as hooks, nothing really is a good substitute for content and being a thought leader and knowing things that are going to actually help them and deliver value and demonstrate that you understand their business, you understand their pains. So we love content. We don't, and I think I speak for most in saying we don't do or have nearly as much of it as we'd like, because I'm a big proponent of great content, not necessarily high volumes of it. And obviously within the healthcare industry and in things like life sciences and biotechnology, it's so nuanced that developing great content for them that's relevant to things that they deal with in terms of attracting investors, attracting scientific employment candidates, attracting physicians that want to buy their drug. It's very comprehensive content and not the easiest to develop. Even the marketing content can be really comprehensive and nuanced. So it's not easy. So I can't claim that we have nearly as much of it as I'd like. But at the end of the day, I'm a big proponent that nothing is a substitute for content. That said, we continue to do all the things as far as hooks, continue to test different headlines, different subject lines and emails, leverage wins that we have. So that's another big thing. If we just heroically launched a project for somebody last month and got it done within a few weeks, this is something that literally just happened. Obviously we want to leverage that. We want to profile that and let others know that we can do the same thing for them. And we can come in and do things that other agencies failed at or other agencies said no to. So it's all over the place in terms of the testing and the things that we're trying all the time.
Most mid-sized agency owners probably do a little bit of this, but is there anything that you could recommend for them to do to step up their game that has yielded you guys a better response overall?
Yeah, and it's the thing that nobody wants to do, and it is the outbound, and it's persistence. I mean, just yesterday we got a great lead. It's a multi-billion-dollar company who I can't name, obviously, but this is after probably 3 years of attempted contacts repeatedly. Just sent an email yesterday. Your persistence paid off. Let's set up a call next week because we have a project for you. And I don't think people think that it happens that way. and people don't like rejection, and people don't want to pick up the phone. And I'm not going to claim we do a lot of cold calling these days. So that's not a lot of what we're doing, but cold emailing, a little bit of calling, again, engaging people on social, not in an annoying way, not what we all get every day, which is somebody connects with you on LinkedIn and literally 1 minute later sends you a scripted email. Don't do that. Okay, that's not what we do. We're actually we're actually engaging people on social media. We're actually being human, connecting with them, engaging with their content, not rushing it, not the minute they accepted our connection, sending them a message. So being patient, but being persistent, being engaging, but again, in a tactful way, being relentless and being persistent, and knowing that if you do all those things right, if you can be more human, you can be more patient, more engaging, even multi-billion-dollar companies will eventually respond back to you and say, hey, it paid off, and we have something that we need you for. And that can be really difficult after you've contacted that one company or that one contact 300 times over like 5 years. But eventually, they need something. So persistence and perseverance in a number of, like you said, the tactics might vary. Find your target, identify who they are, go after them in a human, engaging way, educate them when you can with good content, and stay at it and don't give up on them. That's more what we've learned more than anything in terms of continuous leads.
How would you tell one of your team members, look, per month I want to reach out this many at this frequency to these contacts? Like, how could an owner package that something together and tell one of their team members, say, like kind of a frequent reach out frequency?
It's less about volume and frequency than it used to be. So I don't even actually have those metrics because I don't really subscribe to them anymore. We used to, because it was literally like a lot of things. It used to be a numbers game. We knew that, if we could hit 300 people in a day or 200 in a day, at the end of that week, we might have this many people that were at least willing to talk to us. These days, our approach is so much lower volume that we've got such a target market. We want to engage them in such a quality way that I don't even have those volume metrics as much as the tactics, and making sure that the team is employing those tactics and is continuing to engage those prospects in a quality way. There probably are some metrics that I'm remiss in not knowing there, but it's such a higher focus for me these days on quality, and it's such an evolving, changing thing constantly in terms of how we even engage these people. And that's why my personal focus, don't get me wrong, once we actually have engaged leads, we use HubSpot for our CRM. And once we actually have people's marketing qualified leads and they go into a pipeline, they move through the process of sales qualified leads, those metrics do become important in terms of what our close rate is going to be on qualified sales leads. What percentage of marketing qualified leads become sales leads. That's a little bit different, but in terms of that raw lead generation, it's just changed so much from a volume game to a quality game that I don't have those metrics anymore.
It sounds like you had to pump out the leads, pump out the volume earlier because you weren't as narrowed down as now. Yep. And now you're kind of like, here's your top 10, 50, 100, top 100 lists. Yep. It doesn't matter. We just want to keep in communication with them and as long as possible, because eventually we want them to be our client when they're ready.
Exactly. You're right. And it would be a lot easier if our number was that small. In actuality, it's about 3,000 to 5,000 total companies that are in our universe of potential clients. And then among them, because we've always subscribed to contacting multiple people within a company, especially when you get into some of these real big companies, you get into a multi-billion-dollar pharmaceutical company, they might literally have 200 marketing personnel in that company. And we're literally adding most of them to our CRM system. So it does become challenging in terms of, being able to engage people in a quality way when it's not just 100 companies, but it's in the thousands. So that's a challenge, but something that we just get to them as we can. Focus on, even if we do have 10, 20, 30 marketing people within a given company, kind of focusing on who we think those key decision makers are, continue to send things to the other people continue to like things that the other people are posting, but you kind of even hone down, with these bigger companies, even within the marketing department, who are the individuals that you have the best chance of getting in the door by contact.
How do you staff that team? I mean, it sounds like honestly, even agencies that I've heard, 20 to 50 people, some don't even have one, what I would call a real biz dev person.
Yeah.
The agency owner is a biz dev person. I mean, it sounds like you guys probably have a pretty good staff, like maybe a lead generator, somebody to, I don't know, nurture the accounts. What does that break out
Exactly. To? It's about, it's still a relatively small team, and I kind of consider myself as part of that team. So it's a department of, I'd say 5 to 6 total in terms of research. So that's a big part of it. Just constant research, finding the companies, finding the contacts. 2 people who do full-time outreach, doing all the engagement that I was talking about, and then the people actually doing. Once we actually have someone who's a sales qualified lead, taking that and moving them through the process and doing the pitching and everything. So it's a department about 5 to 6, again, if you include me, but then a whole part of that that's not represented in that team is once we have a sales qualified lead and it's time to really go all in with a pitch, with a proposal, that's when other members of our team who would actually be working with the client come in, and they're a big part of that pitching process, from creative, doing mock concepts, to our SEO, our vice president digital marketing coming in with actual SEO research and data, and doing that pretty extensively for a pitch, to our director of strategy actually making real market recommendations and identifying market opportunities for the prospect. So it becomes, once it's a sales qualified lead, then it becomes a team of about 5 or 6, and a really expensive process once we've determined someone's qualified, because we do, as you can hear as I'm talking about the pitching process, we do a pretty comprehensive proposal and pitch with a lot of actionable recommendations included in that. But the biz dev team, biz/sales marketing team on a whole is, like I said, about 5 to 6 include me.
I want to shift into the experience you have going through acquisition. Yeah. So you actually purchased a company, or was it like an equity swap? Like, tell me about just the company and how that deal structure worked, and then what was the transformation you guys were able to have after that occurred?
Yeah, so for us, it was identifying. So we were web designers, and we always knew back, even as early as the mid '90s. Believe it or not, SEO was even a thing back then, and we always knew the importance of it. Back then, it was a lot easier. You could sprinkle a few keywords in your meta keyword tags and title tags, and you would be in the top 10 in Yahoo and some of the other search engines that mattered back then. But anyway, we always recognized it as a really important thing, and yet we couldn't get our act together on our own. We were, we were really good, as you can tell, we were good at selling, and so we were great at talking about SEO, and we were great at getting people to say, yeah, we need that. We need to be coming up with search engines. But then we would try to fit the competency into people that were doing other things, like ask a web developer if he could learn SEO or something like that. And so we fell on our face repeatedly as an SEO firm. And that's when Brett, my partner, he identified that, we really should look for an acquisition, because that will, if we can find the right company, that's going to allow us to instantly have competencies, expertise, people, processes, tools, all the stuff that we just can't seem to figure out. And it was really astute that he identified that would be the best way to go about it, because that's exactly what did happen. So we found a company, very small. We were maybe about 10 or 15 people at the time, probably 15. We found a 3-person SEO firm. Who, it was timely. The owner was kind of winding things down and wanted to move into some other things that he had interest in, some hobbies that were going to cost some money, and that he needed a fund, but was kind of done with this business. But he had built up a decent little business and had about 200 clients paying him recurring monthly fees to do SEO services for them. They had quite a few clients. They had decent revenues, but they were churning. They weren't doing a lot for clients. They weren't delivering a lot of value for them, and therefore they were losing clients as fast as they were bringing new ones in. not because they were scam artists or anything. There's just only so much you can do for a few $100 a month, obviously, as you know, in the SEO business. And that's kind of what they were doing. It was a volume game. Um, but what they did have is we really liked the people, we really liked the processes, we really liked the tools, and we recognized that they would be a great fit. So we acquired them. It was not just an equity swap. We took over the company entirely. It was with a certain dollar figure down, and then we paid the owner out over, I think, a period of about 3 more years for the remainder of the amount that we acquired him for. It was a good deal for both of us. He ended up with something that was a good valuation for his company and allowed him to do the things that he wanted to do and get out immediately, because he did get a lump sum down as well. And for us, literally overnight, we had all those things that we were lacking. We had people, we had expertise, processes, tools, and clients, a couple hundred clients. So what we needed to do, again, is we recognized even before we made the acquisition that the business model was not going to be in sync with ours. We are not a volume. We don't like churning clients out. We like doing a good job for clients and keeping them forever. So we knew that that was going to be a change. The interesting thing is, even though that model was clear to us, especially when Brett dug in and looked at their books and looked at their clients and their attrition rate and everything else, we immediately saw that they were churning a lot of clients and not keeping them and not doing a great job for them. The interesting thing is they never realized that. They actually thought they were doing a good job and keeping clients happy and things. But once we dug in, we found that they weren't. So that was going to have to be, so even though we got the tools, we got the competency, we got the people, we had to take that and we had to transform it into a business that was going to be able to provide more value for clients, target better clients, keep those clients for longer term. As you know, SEO and digital marketing services can be a high attrition business no matter what you do, but we really turned it around. So we got those things we needed through the acquisition. It was a great deal for both sides, but we transformed it into a business where we really were delivering value, increased prices, obviously, because we have to charge more to do the right stuff for these clients, but really transformed it into a successful SEO business. And today, even today, it's a very significant part of our business. I think we've got a team of about 12 people doing those services, and probably for somewhere more than 60 clients or so that we're delivering, real value for from an SEO perspective on a month-to-month basis.
Some agency owners go into explore acquisitions. A lot of them have concerns about funding. Mm-hmm. So what was your scenario in figuring out how to best be able to fund this purchase?
So fortunately, we had already established somewhat of a successful little business. It's not as though we were sitting on tons of capital and that we could just throw it around freely, but at least we had been at this for a few years. We had at least accumulated enough to pay this owner a lump sum that was satisfactory to him, at least. I'm sure he would have liked to have gotten more down, but it was a win-win scenario. I think as I look back, in terms of, without me going into the specific numbers, I think in terms of the total acquisition price, I think he ended up with about 40% of that down. So that was pretty good. And, it gave him something to get out, made him feel that this was, something he had built, that he was getting something for and not just kind of giving away and getting a check every month. And then, so like I said, fortunately, we had already established somewhat of a successful business, so we didn't have to get a loan for that or anything. We were able to pay him that. It wasn't easy. We identified that, that lump sum, even though it was not enormous money, was going to be a challenge for us. It was going to be a little bit of a risk for us, but it was offset by the fact that we had guaranteed revenues. I mean, when you've got a company coming in that's already profitable, already generating significant revenues, we worked it out in a way that the risk was minimal. No small business wants to deplete their capital, which is kind of what we had to do to make this acquisition with the lump sum. But we knew that the risk was minimal because they did have revenues. And even though we needed to transform the business, those revenues were going to come back in and replenish that cash account, in a timely fashion. And so, like I said, and the remainder of the acquisition price was paid to him over a few years. and not earn out. It wasn't based on growth. It wasn't based on revenues. It was a set contract.
Straight note.
Exactly.
I want to know what deal and partner opportunities you were looking for to drive growth. I'm sure there's some agency listeners out here, or at least when we put this info out, some people can read what you guys are looking for. Tell me more on what's on you guys' mind.
It's that's interesting, Shane, because this year has been really insightful for me because I set out this year. We've been kind of weak at partnerships, at finding folks that we could help and who could in turn help us, hopefully, in terms of growing our businesses. We've gone it alone because we're so specific in terms of the types of clients we like to work with. There's a lot of partnership opportunities like out there. Like, for instance, we could go become a reseller for a hosting company or something, and maybe they would send us leads, but the leads might not be the types of leads we want. So some reseller or partnerships that work for others might not work for us. And so we haven't done a lot of that. So one of the things I did set out to do this year, and I have done, is find other marketing companies who work in the industries that we work in, who maybe don't do the things that we do well, and we could develop relationships with, and we could provide them with opportunities and business with our clients, and they in turn could do the same. So that's been really educational, because what I've learned already being in digital, we can provide opportunities to other agencies who might not be strong in digital for all the things that we don't do. But they don't want to give us the opportunity for digital because everybody wants the digital business. So that's been really insightful, is all of the agencies who have been traditional offline agencies for years are scrambling to become digital agencies. They don't want to pass that over to us. So it's been great in that I've made a lot of relationships this year. I've helped out some of these people that we've partnered with and provided them with some good opportunities. But I think I've learned that we're not going to get much in return for that. So my focus there is changing. And so what I'm doing now is I'm developing some relationships with organizations who do things for the industries that we work in, that are not necessarily marketing related. So IT consulting firms, for instance. As we've talked about here a lot today, we're in healthcare. There's a lot of IT consulting firms that do a lot of work for healthcare and aren't necessarily looking to become digital marketing companies, or aren't necessarily looking to build websites. So that's a good complementary relationship. Artificial intelligence is huge right now and growing in the healthcare sector. Reaching out to those companies and starting to develop some partnerships. Animation companies. So there's a whole slew of these types of companies that I'm kind of identifying right now. But ultimately what it comes down to is other partners who serve our industries that aren't necessarily looking for our piece of the pie. And I'm identifying those as we speak and reaching out to them. It's been a process, but it's been a significant part of my 2019. And at the very least, I've made a lot of great friends, a lot of great relationships out of it. But I'm still trying to determine exactly who and how it will help us grow our business.
What size are those? How can you quantify that?
Really, anybody. I don't necessarily care how big or small. We've like, as an example, I mean, I've spent last month in May. I reached out to and had calls and meetings with something like 20 different agencies that do a variety of things, and they were as small as 2 people up to over 100 people. So it really was more about how much does their client base and the type of work they do complement our client base, the type of work that we do, so that we can be a good match and help each other with the similar types of clients. Didn't really matter to me how big the company is.
Well, we got to get wrapping it up, but thank you for coming on here, Bill. How can our listener get in touch with you?
You can find Emagine, my company, at emagine.com. That's emagine.com. And I am all over LinkedIn and Twitter all day, every day. Please connect with me there. It's Bill Gadless, Gadless, or bill@emagine.com. And I'd love to hear from anybody that wants to chat about this stuff anytime.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks for coming on the Bill Buy Sell Agency podcast.
All right, Shane. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to our Agency Leaders series on the Build, Buy, Sell Agency podcast. Please contact our guests from the links in the episode's show notes if you think there is an opportunity to work together. I recommend mentioning you found them through this podcast episode to catch their attention. Now, if you run a mid-sized agency whose bread and butter are mid-market clients, and you are interested in divestment, exploring your exit options, or driving accelerated growth via strategic collaboration with complementary agency partners, then you may be an amazing fit for our agency network, Unite Digital. Please go to unite.digital/apply to schedule a live discovery call with me so I can understand your goals for your agency and yourself, as well as share the vital benefits of operating within our network at Unite Digital to ultimately determine if you could be a fit to join and thrive within our agency network.